U.S. folk singer Pete Seeger dies. Pete Seeger, a 20th-century troubadour who inspired and led a renaissance of folk music in the United States with his trademark five-string banjo and songs of love, peace, brotherhood, work and protest, died Monday night after being hospitalized in New York for 6 days. He was 94. His death was confirmed to the Associated Press by his grandson, Kidda McCahill Jackson. For more than 50 years, Mr. Seeger roamed America, singing on street corners and in saloons, migrant labor camps, hobo jungles, union halls, schools, churches and concert auditoriums. He helped write, arrange or revive such perennial favorites as If I Had a Hammer, Where Have All the Flowers Gone and Kisses Sweeter Than Wine, and popularized the anthem of the civil rights movement, We Shall Overcome. Tall and reed thin, Mr. Seeger was a recognizable figure for generations of listeners. And with dozens of top-selling records and albums, he became one of the most enduring and best-loved folk singers of his generation. He also was one of the few remaining links to two of the 20th century's early giants of American folk music, Huddie Ledbetter, the black ex-convict from Texas and Louisiana better known as Lead Belly, and Woody Guthrie, the minstrel-songwriter from Oklahoma. The classic song Goodnight Irene was a Lead Belly tune that Mr. Seeger adapted for the Weavers, a quartet he helped form after World War II. The 1948 recording by the Weavers sold 2 million copies. From Guthrie, Mr. Seeger learned to express political and social criticism through music and song. Over time, dissent and left-wing expression became hallmarks of his artistic repertoire. During the anti-communist Red Scare of the 1950s, he was called to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee. I have sung in hobo jungles, and I have sung for the Rockefellers, and I am proud that I have never refused to sing for anybody, he told the committee. I have never done anything of any conspiratorial nature. I love my country very deeply. Guthrie and Mr. Seeger had been colleagues in the Almanac Singers in the early 1940s and collaborated on union and labor songs. For the next half-century, Mr. Seeger changed the focus of his protest songs with the times to encompass social justice, civil rights, peace and disarmament, and environmental conservation. At a Kennedy Center Honors Ceremony in 1994, President Bill Clinton described Mr. Seeger as an inconvenient artist who dared to sing things as he saw them. The news media sometimes called him a Pied Piper of musical dissent. By the dawn of the new millennium, Mr. Seeger had become the widely acknowledged, if unofficial, grand old man of American folk music. He regarded folk songs as music meant to be sung by crowds and bonded with audiences around the world by inviting them to sing along with him. During a performance at Moscow's Tchaikovsky Concert Hall, he led an audience of 10,000 Russians in a 4-part harmony of Michael, Row the Boat Ashore. During the 1970s, the 80s and the early part of the 90s, Mr. Seeger continued to make regular concert performances and recordings, and his compositions were recorded by other groups. But by the mid-1990s, his voice had grown weaker. He struggled increasingly to reach very high and very low notes. In 1949, Mr. Seeger had bought 171 acres on a mountainside near the Hudson River in Beacon, NY, about 60 miles north of Manhattan. He built a log cabin and lived there with his family for several years before moving to a larger house on the same property. In his later years, he was active in environmental causes, including efforts to clean up the Hudson River. Until the end of his life, he remained a beloved figure. The broad public affection for him was on full display in 2009 when, at 89, he joined Bruce Springsteen in a rendition of This Land Is Your Land at a concert on the Lincoln Memorial during President Obama's inaugural festivities. I call them all love songs, Mr. Seeger once said of his music. They tell of love of man and woman, and parents and children, love of country, freedom, beauty, mankind, the world, love of searching for truth and other unknowns. But, of course, love alone is not enough.